The tenement building on the corner of 2nd and 9th in Manhattan had been around for as long as anyone could remember. It was a drab gray building, with peeling paint and a rusty fire escape clinging to its side. It housed over 50 people in its cramped, dimly lit apartments, and its walls were thin enough that you could hear your neighbor's every cough and snore. But despite its shabby exterior and crowded living conditions, the building had always been a lively place. Kids played in the narrow hallways, mothers chatted over the laundry machines, and the smell of cooking wafted from every other door. There was a sense of community in the building that kept people there, even as others fled to more modern and spacious apartments uptown. It was early summer when the locusts first started to sing. At first, it was just a few people who heard it, a faint buzzing in the air that they thought was just a car engine or a faulty air conditioner. But as the days went on, more and more people began to hear it. It was a high-pitched, incessant drone that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Mrs. Ramirez, who had lived in the building for over 30 years, was the first to go mad. She started pacing the hallways, muttering to herself and clawing at her arms. She complained that the locusts were driving her crazy, that she couldn't sleep or think or do anything with that sound in her head. Her son tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen. Eventually, he had to take her to the hospital, where they sedated her and put her in a padded room. The other residents of the building tried to ignore the sound. They turned up their TVs and radios, wore earplugs to bed, and even banged on the walls to drown out the buzzing. But it was no use. The locusts were getting louder, and the sound was driving them all to madness. The building's superintendent, Mr. Choi, tried to find the source of the noise. He climbed up to the roof to check the air conditioning units, inspected the boiler room, and even crawled through the crawl space under the building. But he couldn't find anything that would explain the sound. He began to wonder if it was all in their heads. But then, more strange things started to happen. People began to see things, shadows moving on the walls, flashes of light in the corners of their eyes. And then there were the dreams. People dreamt of swarms of locusts descending on the city, of buildings collapsing and people screaming. They dreamt of a world consumed by the buzzing sound. One night, Mr. Choi woke up to find himself standing in the hallway, his hands pressed against the wall. He had no memory of how he got there or why he was there. He shook his head and went back to bed, trying to convince himself that he was just sleepwalking. But then, the vision started. He saw locusts everywhere, crawling up his walls, clinging to his clothes, filling his apartment. He heard their buzzing in his ears day and night, even when he was alone in a quiet room. He began to feel like he was losing his mind, like the sound was consuming him from the inside out. And he wasn't the only one. More and more residents of the building were being taken to the hospital, raving and screaming about the locusts. The ones who stayed behind became more and more withdrawn, huddled in their apartments with the curtains drawn and the lights off. The only sound in the building was the constant buzzing of the locusts. It wasn't until the city decided to demolish the building that the truth about the locusts came to light. As the wrecking crew tore apart the walls and floors, they found something unexpected. A hidden room on the top floor, accessible only by a secret staircase. Inside the room they found a strange machine, a device unlike anything they had ever seen before. The machine was made of rusted metal and twisted wires, with strange symbols etched into its surface. It was clear that it had been built by someone with a deep knowledge of science and engineering, but there were no records of anyone like that ever living in the building. As the workers pried open the machine, they heard a faint buzzing sound coming from within. And then, with a sudden rush of noise, the locusts stopped. The buzzing stopped. The building was filled with an eerie silence. It was never clear who had built the machine or why. Some speculated that it was a failed experiment, an attempt to create a new form of energy that had gone terribly wrong. Others believed that it was part of a secret government project, something that had been covered up and hidden away for decades. As they walked away from the building, they couldn't help but wonder about the unknown workers who had built it. Who were they? What had they been trying to do? And what other secrets were hidden away in the city, waiting to be discovered? They knew that they would never know the answers to those questions.